I'll say from the outset that the Libertarian Party will be opposing this bill. Let's start with what the bill does first. And if you look at what it claims to do in the objects in clause 5.2e, it suggests that one of the key aims is to disrupt criminal activity by preventing the use of wealth that is not lawfully acquired in further criminal activity. However, the powers in this bill, and the powers are that if Victoria Police suspect that someone has unexplained wealth over a certain prescribed amount, then they can apply to the Magistrates Court to have those assets frozen. And if that wealth cannot be explained in a reasonable manner, then those assets can be seized by the state. You'll notice that in none of this process is it required to prove the criminal sources of that unexplained wealth. So what's really happening here is that we're creating a system for the state to seize assets which they believe are connected to criminal activities, but nevertheless the police are unable to prove that that money comes from criminal activity. It's a shortcut here to undermine organised crime. As I've spoken about much recently, I am very keen to undermine organised crime, but I think that what this is doing, this is bypassing and ignoring the root causes of organised crime. It is looking at the consequences and not even investigating the sources of this unexplained money and simply applying a mechanism through which the state can seize assets of people that Victoria Police thinks that they might be criminals. We only need to look at other jurisdictions to see how badly this can go wrong. United States has absolutely terrible, terrible systems there. In the United States, there are countless stories about cash and assets being seized by local police with no evidence of criminal activity whatsoever. Also, and I think the Greens might be interested in this, in New South Wales they had similar sort of laws, and a couple of years ago they were used to seize the car of a climate activist, and they happened to be living in that car at the time. Now, I don't believe any people would be living in cars worth over $200,000, but nevertheless, it's a good example of the types of unintended consequences that can happen from this type of legislation. And this forfeiture, this confiscation by the state without evidence of criminal activity, it undermines everything that we think about the criminal justice system and natural justice. What I would prefer the government to focus on, and indeed what I would prefer the opposition and indeed the general public to focus on, is rather than playing whack-a-mole like what we're doing at the moment with this sort of random enforcement and crazy new powers like what we're doing here, is look at the root causes of these organised crime activities. And let's have a look at some of them. More recently, we've seen potential corruption in the union, in particular unions. And one of the vectors through which that corruption was obtained was through specialist labour hire agencies. And you may wonder, well, why would anyone need specialist labour hire agencies? Well, that's because of government policy, government procurement policies that dictate that they need certain numbers of people, either race or gender, in order to get government contracts, and therefore they have created a vector for organised crime to get involved. And clearly, those procurement policies, however well-intentioned they may have been, have caused a method for organised crime to get involved and corrupt these government procurement contracts. Also, planning rules. We've seen at local government level problems with planning. What is the incentive there? Well, if you have lines on a map that dictate how land can be used by the state, by the local government or state government, and they change what you can use that land for, of course it increases the value of the land. Now, that creates, again, an incentive for corruption, for organised crime to get involved, and that is another problem that is caused by government policy itself. Another Another issue, another thing that creates a vector for organised crime is, we've been talking about a lot, in fact I talked about it a lot yesterday in the media, is government policy on tobacco and vaping. The government, both state and federal, have outlawed vaping, despite it being a very popular consumer product for people wishing to give up cigarettes. And of course, the government's fantasy that everyone will, go to a doctor and get a prescription and all this sort of stuff has turned out to be not the case, and the market is being supplied by organised crime yet again, and of course all that money needs to be laundered. This could easily be solved by the government allowing vaping for adults, legalising it for adults, as is done in far more sensible countries such as New Zealand and the United Kingdom, which do not have this problem, by the way. Tobacco policy, again. Now, I don't blame the state government for this, although they could be a bit louder in complaining about it to the federal government, as I've been trying to be loud in complaining about it. Our tobacco excise tax is at absolutely ridiculous levels. That differential between the wholesale price and the retail price, which includes the ridiculous excise tax levels that are eye-watering and unaffordable by consumers, which means that tobacco, legal tobacco at least, is effectively prohibited, has again created an incentive by the government for organised crime to get involved, and boy have they gotten involved. They have taken over, as I said yesterday to the media, the government does not regulate tobacco and vaping in this state, organised crime does, and it is a direct result of government policy. They have caused this organised crime. Cannabis, again, we've spoken many times about this. Cannabis in Victoria, I think it's about $1 billion market. Again, $1 billion that's being washed through Lord knows how many money laundering schemes. Again, could be completely eliminated through legalisation. If the government changed the legal status of cannabis, made it, again, a legally regulated product for adults, then this market would disappear from organised crime. $1 billion would be ripped out of organised crime activity. It wouldn't end up as unexplained wealth. It would never be a criminal activity to begin with. They'd be paying taxes on it and employing people. And for people that complain and they say, oh, well, if we legalise cannabis, there would be all of these people that would start smoking cannabis. Let me tell you, I don't think that there is a single person in this state that wants to obtain cannabis that cannot get it. In fact, we have one of the highest consumption rates in the world. It is absolutely crazy. Another one, which is a more recent one, yet a new market for the expansion of organised crime in this state, possibly our fastest growing industry, firewood, and I believe Ms Bath spoke about this. Because of regulations on collecting firewood and this sort of thing, again, they've created another market for organised crime to get involved, and again, organised crime has been driven by government policy directly. Now, all of this money, historically, when we've had small-scale organised crime, they used to joke about it being laundered through fruit and veggie shops and this sort of thing. Let me tell you, the billions and billions and billions of dollars that are being generated by cannabis, vaping, tobacco, even firewood now, they're not going through fruit and veggie shops. And I think that anyone that thinks that this industrial scale money laundering that must be happening is not corrupting other areas of the economy and other parts of the state. In fact, it's hard to think of many industry sectors that would be large enough to absorb this level of money laundering outside of construction. I think that we're going to uncover a lot of connections between what we've been seeing in corruption in the construction sector and other industries, other criminal industries such as black market tobacco, vaping, cannabis, drugs, etc. Another thing that which I note the government has taken action on, and I'm very happy about that, the heroin market. It was estimated by the Parliamentary Budget Office that this market is about $250 million. I note that the government has committed to expansion of their pharmacotherapy system. One may wonder why a Libertarian is pushing for a pharmacotherapy system to be expanded That is because every person that gets off heroin and onto pharmacotherapy is one more person out of the hands of organised crime and getting help from their doctors and families and communities and the health system, rather than dealing with organised criminals, courts, police and prisons. And I commend the government on this action. I would urge them, though, to accelerate what they are doing here because, as was brought up earlier today, we're in a dire situation with synthetic, very powerful opiates. We've seen the disastrous outcomes that have happened in the United States and other countries through drugs like fentanyl and nitazenes, and it is my absolute nightmare that they become widespread in Victoria, and we need to act urgently on this before organised crime, which regulates this market, decides to start distributing these products. Interception will not work. You will not be able to stop it. The only thing stopping it at the moment is organised crime doesn't want it. They don't want it because they've got a nice little calm market, but of course sooner or later someone will manage to bring it in and it'll be a new product and it will kill people. Again, this is due to government policy. I'll state again, the idea of the government confiscating assets from people with no proof of the criminal generation of those assets is wrong, and the Libertarian Party will be opposing this bill.